Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Sunday Soul podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lisa Brewer, the CEO and founder of Heart of Inspiration. And here at this channel and on this podcast, we help you lead a whole and healed, peaceful, and prosperous life. And we discuss the topics that are affecting our soul, our culture, spirituality, and all aspects across all races and all genders and all genres and everything. And what has been popping up a lot lately in the mix has been this discussion about the patriarchy, and it's been discussed in the mainstream. It's being discussed here in the spiritual zones. It's being discussed in religious zones. And so I thought, let's have the talk today and let's talk about whether or not we should end the patriarchy. What do we mean by that? And what that could potentially mean for all of us as humanity. So let's get into it. Let's go.
Along, rise and shine. Come along and rise and shine. Come on and shine. Come along and ride on a life walk a journey. Life walk a journey. Yeah. Come along and ride on a life walk a journey. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So let's dive right in, shall we? Um, there has been for, I don't know, for a while now, but definitely it's definitely, I'll say, ratcheted up or turned up. The volume has been turned up on this discussion of the patriarchy, um, toxic masculinity, um, and femininity, then matriarchy, the rise of the divine feminine, and what that means in general for all of us as humanity. And is this a good thing, a bad thing? Is this where we're going, where we're heading? And should we be heading that way? And so, interestingly enough, different groups of people have in fact commandeered this. But can we just be real for a minute? Like, the feminists have commandeered it, the activists have commandeered it. You will find a discussion usually on more of a conservative leaning side of, oh my God, they're talking about getting rid of the patriarchy, and this is some horrific thing, right? Definitely in the manosphere, there has been this discussion ad nauseum about the patriarchy, about pros, cons, mainly pros, and the rise of femininity, the rise of feminism, the rise of what they perceive we're talking about when we're talking about the rise and power of the divine feminine, and their perception of it, and how that they feel it is a threat to them and to society in general. Now we will hear multiple studies, this, that, and the third, about the family, the structure of the family, how important fathers are to the family, how important it is for us to maintain patriarchy, and leadership, and how the men lead and the women and children follow. And this is the only way to have a successful society. I first want to say this to anyone that is in the manosphere or the women's sphere or wherever you're listening, conservative, liberal, agnostic, religious, spiritual, whatever you are. I want to say this. It is vitally important for men to have a leadership or significant role in society. I'm going to speak probably a little more closer now, and to my melanated family. It is vitally important that we restore fatherhood and the importance thereof to our society, that we, uh, we're able, that we start to make better decisions about fathering children, about mothering children, or procreating with certain individuals, about spreading our seed everywhere. Just in general, there's just like a lot that we really need to really uh, acknowledge and discuss and do a hard check on ourselves about it. And be very sure that we stop allowing government and government associations or government entities, society, sociological, socioeconomic structures to divide us as families, and remove legal structures to remove men from being fathers and being able to be fathers. Okay. I am not saying that there's no role for a man in a child's life, in a family's life, in society's life, world. I'm not saying that at all. So let's just get that out before anyone misquotes me later, as I'm sure you probably will. And that's your prerogative. But now I want to turn the attention towards what are we really saying, and should patriarchy be ended? Now, let's do. Anybody's been around me knows I love a good definition, because I love to know, I love for us to have an even playing field about what it is exactly we're all talking about and what the words mean that we're saying, because every time we speak a word, we're doing what? Casting a spell. I know that really hurts your heart right now. So instead of maybe casting a spell, let's say we're creating our world. How about that? Would that work better for you? Every time we speak a word or a series of words together, we are creating our world. Okay, let's do that. Now, patriarchy. I left it up there for y'all to look a little bit at it. Patriarchy. Merriam-Webster's definition of patriarchy is social organization marked by the supremacy of the father in the clan or family, the legal dependence of wives and children, and the reckoning of descent and inheritance in the male line. Broadly speaking, there should be space there. I apologize. Control by men of a disproportionately large share of power. Broadly speaking, control by men of a disproportionately large share of power. We're going to break this down. Okay. This in and of itself, the term patriarchy then is by definition stating that there is supremacy of men over the clan, the family, society, supremacy thereof, a legal dependence. Like this shocked the crap out of me. The legal dependence, as if there was illegal dependence. Oh boy, we already going to go there. So basically, there has been a society that's been created whereby under certain circumstances it's illegal for wives and children to be dependent upon a man, but yet men just set it up so that we would have to be dependent upon them because you want to exist supremacy. And the reckoning of descent and inheritance in the male line, which then results in a disproportionately large share of power wielded by one gender, men. Do we not see a problem with that? How do we get to this point where men have been somehow, it has been bestowed upon them to have supremacy? That's a big term. That's a big word. I didn't look up what the word supremacy is, just hitting me right now. How big of a word that is. I have my phone here. What is the definition of supremacy?
Here's the definition of supremacy: the state or condition of being superior to all others in authority, power, or status.
The state of or condition of being superior to all others in authority, power, or status. That is the definition of supremacy. Why are men or patriarchs or fathers, why are they supreme? Why would I as a woman then be in a position where I have to bow down to or come up underneath a man? And I looked up a lot of different definitions and I've, thought about a lot of stuff. And the best the conclusion I can come to, this is a thus saith Lisa, like it or not, I don't care, is that because of the male dominance in physical capabilities, aka physically, a man can physically overpower me and overpower children, um, and their role as protector, hunter, and gatherer. In some cases, I would say provider to the family and to the woman, to his wife or girlfriend or whatever. And we'll talk about the construct of marriage another day. That then gave them, they feel the right, somebody somewhere along the line, because that's not necessarily a melanated concept. Supremacy of the man is not the melanated concept. And by me saying melanated, I mean that encompasses the continent of Africa, that encompasses indigenous people that have significant melanin in their skin naturally. So that would be the indigenous peoples of North America, the indigenous melanated peoples before other peoples came over here and decided this was going to be theirs. They just declared it was theirs, which still floors me because, we teach at least some of us do, teach our toddlers that you just can't go around snatching up other people's stuff and saying it's mine and it means that it's yours. And yet, here we are. Now, at any rate, that's a whole nother discussion, y'all. We're going to leave that be for right now because I can clearly go down a bunch of different rabbit holes and talk about the fact that patriarchy is in totality and supremacy of man, in that man or the male or the father, it has this level of, what is this here? The state or condition of being superior to all others in authority, power, or status. You can miss me with all of that. Should we end patriarchy? Now let's look at, it was very hard for me to, let me wrap this up. So then we see patriarchy in effect is simply a level of control by men of a disproportionately large share of power, simply because of various third dimensional predispositions and DNA factors. Okay. So some people, there used to be a saying that we used to say, I paid a cost to be the boss. So basically, because hunt and gather can fight and protect and can overpower physically. Now, there are some logical or thought patterns, right? Like men and women think differently by and large. There's a lot of us like myself that are very much, a very scientific, a very analytical mind. I have a strong business acumen, and I would say there's a lot of women that have a strong business acumen, but beloveds, you all don't enter into that realm because of how we are brought up to think and view and act and react in regard to being entrepreneurial and such and so on. And we'll talk about that as we go further because it's very significant. This May is going to be very much the maternal mother month. I've decided just now on this podcast. And so all things women and feminine and empowering you. So it's not that we are incapable of conducting business and being thriving entrepreneurs. We just been put in certain positions and places and been taught, programmed a certain way because there's a disproportionate amount of power that has been taken by and then handed over to men. Listen, if you let me put it this way too, before anybody gets their panties in a bunch. If you want to If your desire is to allow, or if you're in a relationship and you're like, I'm very happy to have my husband take the lead, I'm very happy to do all these things, I have zero issue with that. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, there are some, sometimes I really would like to, and I do aspire to, having a relationship where it's not just me and only me making all the decisions and, coming up with the plans and all this stuff, right? I want to have somebody to bounce things off of, and they can bounce things off of me. And honestly, if it comes down to it, there's something I honestly don't want to have. I just don't, I would rather not. And that's okay. But what is not ever going to happen is that this individual is supreme over me. That's what's not going to happen. And some would probably say, I mean, go, if you would listen to Kevin Samuels or anyone else in the manosphere, they'll probably tell you, well, girl, that's why you don't have a man. I didn't say I didn't have a man, did I? I said if I was going to enter into another long-term committed relationship where we were cohabitating in some form of fashion or whatever the case may be, you will not have supremacy over me. Period, point blank in a conversation. If that does not fit your bill and float your boat, then baby, I guess we'll never be together. Because you will not have supremacy. That is deep. The state, or I will never be in a state or condition of allowing some other human being to be superior to me in authority, power, or status. Where you have supreme, no, that's not happening, Captain. Now yes, here we go. Because you could be a leader and not be, you could be a leader of a group, and any of us who are entrepreneurs or leaders or management in any form or fashion and have managed people know that you can be a very effective, effectual, loved, beloved leader that has very loyal people in your organization that will follow your lead without being a supreme grand poobah. Here we go. Matriarchy. It took me forever to find any type of real definition. I really didn't find it, of matriarchy. Matriarchy, a family, group, or state governed by a matriarch. Great. A system of social organization in which descent and inheritance are traced through the female line. A system of social organization in which descent and inheritance are traced through the female line. Nowhere in there does it state that there is real power. Did you notice that? Or supremacy. Here we go. Another definition of this is from Wikipedia. The first one's from Merriam-Webster. This definition of matriarchy. Matriarchy is a social system in which women hold the primary power positions in roles of authority. In a broader sense, it can also extend to moral authority, social privilege, and control of property. While those definitions apply in general English, definitions specific to anthropology and feminism differ in some respects. The reason I'm going to propose to you that we don't have a really good idea of what matriarchy looks like is because we're going by English, aka European definitions, and that culture did not allow for matriarchy in any way. That culture sought to and needed to and successfully did control their women. I'm even going to propose to you that in the Pauline Christianity, in the Pauline doctrine, which is what modern day Christianity is based on, modern day Christianity is not based on, really in all actuality, the teachings of Jesus. Because if you ask anybody, and I'm a Christian minister, so miss me if you're like, no, it's not the truth. It is the truth. And I'm going to tell you why. Because 99% of the time, when we make any reference to how one should conduct oneself or how a family or something, an organization should be organized in a Christian sense of the term, we do not go to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those aren't the books we go to. The books we go to are the book of Acts, and then more likely than not, though, you're going to everything from Romans through and not including Revelation. Revelation, you're not touching. We don't really reference a lot the book of John. First and second, is it first and second John? And we don't reference first and second Peter that often. Now, I'm going to challenge you all that have been long-term, and I'm not saying anything bad, y'all. Please understand. I'm just showing you a thing is a thing. I'm calling a thing a thing. The majority of sermons that are taught and the majority of books that are written about how to conduct oneself in a Christian point of view and in Christian religion is done from the Pauline doctrine, the Pauline epistles. In other words, those epistles, books written by Paul, not by Jesus, not by John, not by Peter. Timothy didn't follow Jesus. Basically, this is what I'm saying. The majority of how we have constructed Christianity and how women should be and men should be and Christians should be is all written by a man or multiple men, because Timothy, I don't believe, again, walk with Jesus, by men or a man that never spent one moment in the presence of Jesus the Christ, not one, didn't sit underneath any of his teachings, and spent the majority of this beginning of his adulthood before the road to Damascus, killing early Christians. And yet this is the person that we want to say, oh yeah, we're going to follow it. But this is somebody that didn't even sit down and break bread with Jesus. In fact, was all about the hunting down of and execution of Jesus the Christ. He wanted to kill the consciousness. He did not want that consciousness and that teaching brought out. I digress. But yet this is the person that we're following on. And why do I say that? Because in this construction and in our current socioeconomic and in our current anthropological and sociological constructs, we have this erroneous concept that this is the way and the only way. That is not. For centuries, for millennia, the most successful civilizations were those, and the most long-lasting dynasties were those that were not patriarchies, but there was a partnership, a balanced approach to the morality, the sociology, the commerce and economy and leadership and authority that was exercised within those cultures. Was there an ultimate, okay, there's a pharaoh or there's a king or there's, what have you? Absolutely. But everyone also understood that there was a very important and critical role that the divine feminine energy, matriarchal energy played, because where men could see third dimensionally and were very strong third dimensionally, the women were acknowledged, honored, and revered as those that had the ability to see into the spirit realm. We have possessed a greater sense and a greater emotional intelligence, and it was understood that through our energy there was the ability to see future, see in, see behind, and feel our way and be able to create or give good input into what would be the advice of or the direction of, potentially. Here are all our options, because we're not linear thinkers. We see wider and broader. We're not this. We're not myopic. We don't have tunnel vision. And therefore, because of that, yes, because of that, we then have the ability. Our abilities were honored as healers, as teachers, as mentors, as being the moral compass, the moral guide, the spiritual compass, the spiritual guide. And again, in the majority of successful, long-lasting dynasties, the bloodline of the mother was way more important than the bloodline of the father. It was traced and tracked. Yeah, inheritance might be over here, but wait, who your mama is? Oh, right? Remember, we did have this. And in fact, even in Judaism, in actual the Hebrew actual Judaism, as it should be practiced, your mother determines whether or not you're Jewish or not. Your mother determines your Hebrew lineage, not your father. You want to know why that is? Your father can go sowing his seed everywhere and anywhere. But you, beloved woman, your egg, your bloodline is the pure one. You carry, right? We have two X chromosomes, so we can make male or female. There's always going to be one of those X chromosomes consistently. The father's only going to be contributing the Y chromosome. That X chromosome came from his mother. The Y chromosome came from his father. We don't know what's happened all the way over here in the daddy's lineage. Where them Y chromosomes been strewn across could have been any multiple types of X chromosomes that them Y chromosomes partnered with. However, from the mother's womb is always going to be the bloodline. Social system in matriarchy is a social system in which women hold the primary power positions and in roles of authority. In a broader sense, it can also extend to moral authority, social privilege, and control of property. You know, there are verses in the Bible, specifically in Proverbs, the Proverbs 31 woman. She was the one that went out and bought and sold the land. She did all the real estate. She managed the house. She cut all the deals. She was the one that was like, okay, we're going to sell this at the market. We're going to do this over here. We're going to do this over there. And homeboy was chilling in the gates, man. Oh, yeah, my wife's the bomb. Ain't done nothing, like, not one thing. Okay, yeah, okay, great. So you went out and hunted and killed something. Thank you. Because, see, but what she was doing in the market, she could have bought whatever she needed. My point is, and the women really should be the ones that are dictating and showcasing and deciding upon moral authority. And the reason why I say that is because, again, our temples are the ones through which life is created and brought into this world. We are the ones that propagate, that actually bear life into the world. Could we do that without men? Well, there's Mary. Isis had virgin conception. There's multiple people that have had conception without a physical man. But we're going to leave that for another day. I'm just going to say, for the sake of discussion, and so I don't lose every last male subscriber or listener, no, technically not. However, that doesn't mean that gives you supremacy, because technically it didn't even have to be you. You ever heard the saying, mama's baby, daddy's maybe? It didn't have to be you. I carry the egg. You definitely can't have now without me. The world cannot continue without us. Period, point blank, end of discussion. You do not have the capability of procreating without us. But I could have a man by any father. There could be only one mother. The child, I have 3 kids. They could have been fathered by anyone, technically. But they were all only going to come through my egg. Now, should we end the patriarchy? And why am I even discussing this? And I've been discussing this for a half hour, and I've barely scratched the surface. The reason why I wanted to open up this discussion, and again, we will continue to have this discussion. I'm going to propose to you, patriarchy as we know it needs to end. It is an uneven, out of balance, disproportionate amount of power being given to, taken by, gifted, and just allowed to run amok one group, one gender, men. That's not the way this was meant to be. If we believe as spiritual beings that we are all meant to be in balance, and that there is balance that is meant to be achieved in the world, and part of the reason why we're in the crappy position that we're in right now is because we have not yet achieved in any major form balance. If that's truly what we believe, then patriarchy must end. Patriarchy must end. It cannot be allowed to continue. Why is that, Lisa? Because the balance of power must come again. We can't have a world that is balanced in love, compassion, honoring each other, one another, without having a balanced approach to how we govern our communities and cultures. The reason why there's a rise in the divine feminine, for those of us that are actually walking in the divine feminine, the reason why men do not need to be fearful of it, as long as they are raising their own insight, input, vibrational set point, spiritual selves to recognize there is no threat. Divine and not toxic femininity. Divine femininity, not toxic femininity. There's no threat from us. There is only continued empowerment and actual balance that can be achieved when we work together. Toxic femininity is desiring to take over and overtake and say, "Oh, fine, we're gonna make you our footstool and we're gonna take over." That's toxic. Divine femininity seeks to be in divine order. What is divine order? Balance. Divine order is balance. Divine order is beauty. Divine order is sustenance. Divine order is exactly that. It is divine. It is what should be. It is what is from source, creator, God, universe, however. So should we end patriarchy? Absolutely, because we need to get into balance. How we end patriarchy will be the subject of another show. Guys, thank you so very much for being here with me today. I greatly appreciate you. I honor you and I respect you. Join me all month long for discussions about not only just patriarchy and matriarchy, but the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and how we can achieve balance. Women, we must also achieve balance in our own lives. And we will be discussing that again in the next episode. Peace, love, blessings, and joy be unto you today, tomorrow, and for all eternity. I love you guys very much. Namaste. Bye-bye.